Vrinda. Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Morning modes are much more pleasant than the evening ones to me. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakayam Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Mukham Karati Vachalam Pangum Langati Girim Yat Kripatamaham Pande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubheva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Okay, let me just take a quick look here. That's spooky. Okay, here's a picture that we get from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, which truly shows how, again, unlike most of world religious texts, Bhagavad Gita is one impartial study of human spirituality. Well, human spirituality, everyone's a spiritual being, but typically humans take to spiritual life. Obviously, I'm a monk in a specific tradition. I have markings on my forehead, certain haircut, wear certain clothes, and all of this indicates that I am a member of a certain religious tradition. And as I walk around, very often people ask me, well, sometimes they ask, what do you believe? And I always find the question to be silly. I mean, what do you imply? What do I believe? Believe in so many things. What do you believe in? Anyhow, but the other question is that's often asked is, what is your religion? What is your religion? And so typically people expect to hear a name of an institution or name of a tradition. However, when Lord Krishna looks at the phenomena in the human society, not really so much in the animal or plant society, but when Lord Krishna looks at the human society, and when it looks at the phenomena called religion within the human society, does not divide it into categories defined by institutions or by traditions, as a matter of fact. The fact that someone's a Christian or a Muslim or a Hindu, it doesn't tell you much. It tells you very little about the person or about the worldview that person has adopted. Now, when we'll see how Lord Krishna sorts out religion according to the Bhagavad Gita, as it's given to us in the Bhagavad Gita. Actually, even before religion, they're not specifically elaborated upon, But again, Bhagavad Gita is such a short work that hardly anything is super exclusively elaborated upon except Krishna Bhakti, because it's a very important thing, so it's really stressed out. But it is referred to in the Bhagavad Gita. And what is that? What is it that Bhagavad Gita quickly refers to? And it's the first category of human consciousness that's not religious. But I'll put it in. And these are known as vikarmis. Karma meaning activity, and vikarmi means some kind of intense activity or activity out of balance, etc. Now this refers to people who act out of their own whim, or people act out of their own pleasure. And so this is something, well, in modern times that is the religion, I guess. I remember once I was sitting on a plane. Can't remember what my destination was, flying too much and too often. But in front of me there was a guy and there was a girl, a man and a woman. And obviously they never met before, and so now they met and they were talking, they were sitting next to each other, and they asked each other where they were headed, and in one point she said where she was headed, and his response is, "Oh, it's so nice out there. You will like it very much, and then there's this pond, and there's that lake, and then there's that river, etc., etc., and you can fish there, and you will enjoy it very much." And so this is just a perfectly everyday statement that anyone could make, but to a devotee it's a shocker. It's a huge shocker. So okay, a devotee may be shocked that someone is going to be fishing, but what's even more shocking is that, oh, you're going to enjoy it there. Excuse me. Who doesn't want to be happy and enjoy? Everyone. But to define one's happiness through the attitude that it has to come from me. It is my choice. I'm going to go there, and I will check it out, and I will enjoy it, and then I'll be happy. It's interesting. There's this one psychologist, New Yorker, apparently fellow, doesn't matter, Jewish guy. Even wrote a book about that, about his findings. He said that, interestingly enough, there's an interesting paradox that more choices people have, less they become happy. As a matter of fact, people who are given fewer choices, to whom it is told what to do, tend to be more happy. Fascinatingly enough. Of course, it's fascinating to anyone, to all those who have no spiritual training and who really have not studied the nature of existence or nature of human beings in the first place. But according to Lord Krishna, also that's a recipe for disaster. I want. That's a recipe for disaster. But if you do as you're told, and probably people who are listening to this and are not devotees, they're probably thinking, this guy's really nuts. America is the fountainhead of I want. It is the world capital of I want. It is the religion of America that if I want, I do it. And I do it only because I want it. But even morally speaking, it's much more superior to do that which has to be done, which is greater than you. It's good and therefore has to be done. It's not a matter of your choice. Because if the happiness is just a matter of our choice, if ethics and morality are a matter of our choice, what do we have to complain about Hitler? His stuff was his choice. Dude, made him happy? Not really. So our arbitrary choice cannot be, and it never is. I mean, we do have God-given freedom to choose, but the point is to choose that which is greater than us. And so vikarmis are those who don't understand this, and they simply go by their own arbitrary choice. Vikarmi, and the world currently is mostly populated by vikarmis, and therefore this is the religion of modern times. If you speak against it or challenge it, you will be challenged. You will be met with aggression. I remember I was at an airport. My Guru Maharaj we came to escort him to the airport, and he was leaving, and so as he was leaving, it was just me. I offered dandavats, prostrated obeisances there in the middle of the airport, LAX. And then I just accidentally, as I was getting by, I looked on, and there was a group of people. Their jaws dropped, and they were completely shocked that someone would bow down, and in such a humble state, to someone else. Like, where's your self-esteem? Where's your self-respect? All these questions were bubbles around. Just couldn't comprehend it. Because the modern world is based on the religion of I want. And is the religion of the vikarmis. Of course, it's not a religion. Excuse me. Just 1 second. It's not a religion in the sense that it excludes God, excludes the soul and the nature of both and the nature of their relationship. But this is referred to in the Bhagavad Gita several times, just briefly. So I put it in the category. And then we come into the realm of religion. And there's a reason why I mentioned these type of people. Or actually, it's not really a matter of people as much as it is the matter of type of consciousness. Because people are not made in a factory. They're not made in a factory somewhere, and you're made and you're like this phone. It's the way it is. It can't change. But humans' consciousness is of such a nature that it can change, and it does changes. So we're not really speaking of types of people. We're speaking of a type of consciousness that any human being can adopt or develop. Or underdevelop. So there's a reason why I mentioned that type of consciousness, because the very next type of consciousness is the consciousness which is considered religious and spiritual, and Krishna does recognize it as falling within the religious realm, but it is very much materialism based. And it's rooted in I want, but it has made compromise with what God wants. Or, what God wants, to make it simple. I don't have to every time philosophically elaborate on terms. Which is sometimes good, because it's often misunderstood. If you say you do what God wants, then people often confuse that with religious fanatics, people who are utterly without brain, just acting upon their whims, giving it all to the name of God. That's not the case. So the next type of consciousness is a religious consciousness, and typically they're known as karmis. And karmis are people who are of consciousness that tells them, by this consciousness, these people are convinced that the best possible use of my time, that the best type of situation that I can ever be in, is to be religious, but in such a way where God is conceived of, as Srila Prabhupada says, a vending machine or a supermarket, where you approach God with a shopping list, and you revere God, you respect God, you offer oblations, you offer gifts, words of praise, but only with one goal, and the goal is that I get stuff. In other words, it's again, I want. It doesn't matter what God wants. And I remember first time I went to India, I never, ever in my life did I see people so enthusiastic, so dynamic, so focused about going to temples, and then going into these temples with such enthusiasm and fervor, and then being there and praying intensely. I never seen anyone pray so intensely. But then I was quickly also disappointed to find out that these prayers were all, God give me this and God give me that. Make me pass an exam, make my wife healthy, let us move to America. God's good to me. He moved me to America. God exists. Now what's interesting in and of itself, this is also not that big of a problem. But what the problem with it is, nowadays this term is used a lot, objectification, where people objectify God. Do you know what it means to objectify? Objectification? Oh.
It's something that you want to get just because it's again you want.
Correct, but the specifically terms objectification refers to conversion of beings into things. Not in real world, but in our minds. In other words, when we conceive of a being, of a living being, not as a living autonomous being with its own needs and ends, but we conceive of that being as a means to our own ends, someone that we use. Now we don't use people, we use objects. Chair is meant for sitting on. People are not meant for sitting on. Beings are not meant to be sat upon. Socks, you use socks. Of course I use socks. You used me. Oh, that's very dangerous. That's now immoral. So, in other words, when we bring ourselves, or our consciousness stoops down to that level where we perceive beings as mere means to our own ends, that's called objectification. Like modern feminists, they really loud about this, that men objectify women. That women are only seen as sexual objects. Objects for the satisfaction of men. But what they don't say is that they do the very same thing to men, because they're all same materialists. But anyhow, some other time about incoherency of modern feminists. But they are right about that, objectification. And karmis do that to God. Just like modern feminists are so offended by being objectified. By that we can understand what's wrong with being a karmi. Karmi in the sense that that we approach God because we want something from God. We objectify God. God to us is not a person. We don't care what God wants. I'll give you a quick, short, real event from the life of my friend. Now, he's a brahmachari in Krishna consciousness. He also served as a temple president for a good number of years. And some years ago, he went to visit his mother. And his mother is a Christian woman, a Catholic. And so while he was in the living room, there was TV blasting, just making noise, while his mom was cleaning around. And what he noticed that his mom was, her emotional, mental state was fluctuating in such a way that's not indicative of a very healthy person. Too much mental fluctuation. And so he thought, why don't you just first shut that TV off? Calm down. Like get yourself together. Get some rhythm in your life. And get some religion in. So he did that. He turned off TV and he told her, Mom, just calm down, sit here, let's read Bhagavad Gita. I'm Christian, I don't do that. Then he said, okay, let's sit down and read the Bible. No! Says, I I go to church. I go to church. I don't need to read Bible. And then she said, I go to church and I pray. And he told her, okay, you go to church and you pray. That means you go to church and you talk to God. Why don't you sit down and let God, for change, talk to you? Not that only you talk to God, let God talk to you. Read the Bible. Again, no, wouldn't. Christian in name only, right? But that's that same disease. Does not care what God has to say. Because God, these people objectify God. They only want stuff from God. Give me good health, give me car, give my kids good health. Just give. They objectify God. This is literally offensive. In other words, they completely ignore that God's a person and that perhaps He also wants something. That's not, never, ever comes to the forefront of the consciousness of these kind of religious people. And they're called karmis. And even though in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna accepts them. Krishna accepts them as religious people, but they're not. This is super duper introductory level of religious concepts. And what's interesting, most of the religious world is populated by these kind of people, by people of this kind of consciousness. Like my grandmother before she passed away, she used to pray several hours every morning and every evening. And I was really, I'm a sannyasi, I travel a lot. So I asked her, I'm not there all the time, but once a year I pass through for a day just to say hi. And I asked her, what is she praying about and who is she praying to? So she said they was praying to God, okay. And what are you praying for? And then she said they would say a name of each of her sons and daughters and grandsons and grandchildren, right? She would say each of their names and then she would pray for their health. Okay, not too bad, but this is still a karmi. For example, first thing she said that she prays to God, and I asked her who God is. And I would think a Christian Catholic woman would know. What's interesting, she was completely baffled by that question. In other words, she never even thought who God might be. And yet she's praying every day. It means she couldn't care less about God. She cares about her children and grandchildren. Which you could say is, it's kind, nice, selfless. But this is not religious. I mean, it is, but really low level of religion. And if you think that this is just my grandmother, no, this is 90% of people in India. Well, I'm tossing out numbers. What do I know? I never did the... never went around actually interviewing people, but probably I'm right about it's about there, right? It's a huge, high percentage in India, in Europe, wherever you go. This is the most basic religious concept. That God is there to give me some. These are karmis, and they're slightly better than we karmis. But it's rooted in what I want. And then way better than these people. Now we have a huge jump. Who Krishna speaks about. In other words, this is another level of another type of religion, way superior to this. And this is the religion of the jnanis, the religion of people who have come to understand the necessity for spiritual elements such as God, such as soul, or at least eternity. Without eternity, everything here is absolutely, ridiculously not important. Because everything we do will come to pass. Seems very important now, next day has no value. Maybe not next day, but in 10 years or 100 years or 100 million years. What's 100 million years against eternity? Nothing, blip. Think eternity. And compare that any amount of time, any amount of finite time against eternity is absolutely insignificant. Eternity does exist. If you think after every point in time, there's another point in time. And before every point in time, there was a point in time. There's infinity in both ways. And to take any amount of time, you bracket any period, it's absolutely insignificant. And because these people are thoughtful, therefore they conclude, but this, whatever I do, it makes no sense. So unless I do something within the terms of eternity, in other words, if I'm not using my temporary existence for the realization of eternity, I'm really wasting my time. There's no value to. And what's interesting, even when you speak like this to people, they still don't care. Why? Because they're not jnanis. They don't care. That's the type of consciousness who's simply interested what's to eat, how will I gratify my senses in this way, the other way. Oh, now I feel sad, I want to feel happy. Now I feel danger, I don't want to feel in danger. But they never think, what's the value of it all? Now, jnani is a person whose consciousness is not that gross. So this person has understood that without the concept of eternity, this is everything literally useless. Has no purpose, has no value. And so therefore now they begin to think about eternity, and it becomes a real need for it. And now this brings us to what Krishna calls yogis, or we could say mystics. Now in every tradition we have karmis and jnanis, and we have yogis, in the sense that we have people who are fruit workers, in the sense that we have people who are after knowledge, intelligent people, and then we have yogis, mystics. Now, what's mysticism in all of this? If you see, if you want to study something, you have to understand a little bit about the nature of the thing so you could study it appropriately. If you think of, Sridananda Maharaj gives this example of temperatures. If you think of temperatures exist in a certain way. They ontologically exist in a certain way. And because they exist in a certain way, you cannot even begin to detect them unless you use proper instruments. For example, if I give you a measuring tape and ask you to go out, study temperatures, you will not get too far. As a matter of fact, after many years of trying to study temperatures with a measuring tape, you will come back and report temperatures do not exist. So similarly, because soul, because God, because eternity exists in a specific way, you cannot take a microscope and go out and search for God and soul. If you do this, you'll come back and you'll be an atheist. You'll say God and soul do not exist. You have to, because they exist in a specific way, you have to use specific tools to detect them and to study them. And this brings us into the land of mysticism. Like some people ask for the proof of God. There's plenty of proof. But the question is, what kind of proof you want? If you want a measuring tape type of a proof, that's just stupid. It doesn't work like that. Because God and soul are metaphysical by nature, therefore the proof is also metaphysical by nature. In Bhagavad Gita, for example, he gives many ways in which one can literally realize, have experience of God and soul, and the relationship between the two. And if you put this to practice, you will absolutely have that experience. So every tradition, every major spiritual or religious tradition has mystics. Some people pray, some people meditate, some people pray and meditate and whatnot. These are mystical or spiritual tools by which one comes to learn about God and about soul. And so in this way we have mystics. Having detected God, having detected soul, having first understood the need for both, and then having detected them, having studied them, then eventually the perfection is that one comes to love God. And this is the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. And this is the fourth or third, whichever way you want to put it, type of religion, where one actually loves God. So being a philosophical text, in the Bhagavad Gita we don't find religion conceived of in terms of institution or societal organization as we typically find in traditions, because it's a philosophical text. But rather we find religion conceived of in terms of quality of consciousness or type of consciousness, no matter where we find it. And people who understand this are people who are not disrespectful to other traditions. And people who have a really grand vision from above and see the whole thing. Can find elements of karma, jnana, yoga or bhakti. There's one more thing by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but I think I'll skip that. Maybe tonight. No, not tonight, tomorrow night. Yeah, I think I'll do that because it's too much to get it started right now. This is from his commentary on Bhagavad Gita. So there you go. That's the religion as conceived of by Krishna, and so then when someone asks you, "What is your religion?" What do you say? I mean, of course, people are just curious. They want to know what's your religious tradition. Not really what is your religion. Neither do they know what religion is. And it sort of ties in with last night's presentation about the nature of existence of soul, about yagya, the purpose of yagya and transcendental knowledge. So similarly like this, people tend to think that they're religious if they belong to a certain tradition and dress certain way or eat certain way, but that's not specifically what makes someone religious. It is the quality of their consciousness that makes him religious in a specific way. And ultimately, one who comes to love God is the one who has reached the perfection of religion. Tulayama lavenapi na svargam na punar bhavam bhagavat sangi sangasya bhagavat sangi sangasya Martyanam kim utashishaha. Oh my goodness, haven't quoted this one in ages. It's a good one. It repeats, I think, 3 times. No, yeah, 3 times repeats in the Bhagavatam this verse. Tulayama lavenapi nasvargam na punarbhavam. This is how devotee thinks. That one fraction of a moment of association of one who's associated with God cannot be compared to anything, to liberation, literally to liberation, to Napunarbhava means liberation, that one does not take birth again, not even going to the heavenly planets. What to speak of any Martyanam, any benefit that could be offered within the world of death, where everything is temporary. One fraction of a moment of association of one who's in contact with God. Not even God directly, but meaning a pure devotee. You thought of another shloka?
It's not exactly same, but there's another one, Narayana Parasarvena.
Nakutashchana Bibyati Svagarganariki Apitulyartha Darshina. Yeah. Slightly different, yeah. Well, more than slightly, but yeah. Yeah. Okay, so any questions or comments? A few minutes left. If not, off we go on a walk. Do you have time? Do you want to go on a walk? It is interesting that traditionally India was always a huge marketplace of religion. Like in the business, if you have one company dominating the market with one product, and if they don't have a competitor, then that product tends to be, to put it in plain English, lousy. Tends to not be very good. And so in business, for the buyers, it's good that there is competition. And in India, there was religious competition was always allowed. As a matter of fact, in that in the Indian subcontinent, it was just traditionally a place of friendly competition. That's one of the reasons why religious and philosophical thought of India is tremendously developed. It's okay, doesn't matter. But yes, yeah.
On the same note, obviously in Bhagavad Gita itself, which has been written from thousands of years, at least in written form, it is already declared that the highest principle is to love God. What is the reason why this simple fact, once you get to know it's a simple fact, gets lost in translation, particularly in India itself, where like more than 90% are still in the following the lower principles, the higher principle.
You mean lost in translation, figuratively or literally?
I mean, yesterday I was watching one, it's a film program, but he's actually a humanist. He's actually using all the misuse by the religious organization to make a case for the humanism. I mean, I was actually able to see through that. He's just using everywhere where the religion is misused as a way to explain
humanism.
Why humanism is better if you don't need religion at all.
Do you know what humanism is? Everyone in the room? Who knows? Does anyone know what humanism means? That you eliminate God, you don't need religion, but humans are inherently good. And so you give humans a chance and they'll be good. But it's such a fallacy. And Americans are primarily humanists. Americans used to be Christians, but they became humanists in due course of time. Probably due to being exposed to enormous wealth. They became humanists. But what happens when you give humans this kind of freedom? When you lift these moral limitations on their behavior. They open shopping malls. Indians don't even get it. You got it. Humans open shopping malls. That's stupid. America's a prime example of it. And then these very same people were pronouncedly humanists. They complain about this. They complain about materialism. They complain about destruction of environment, but they just don't get it. You see, Bhagavad Gita opens up with a very basic but very important concept that we're not the body, we're the soul. But yet we're conditioned by the body. So because we're conditioned by the body and conditioned by the materialistic consciousness, even though by nature we're spiritual, we have become spiritually sick, diseased. And so therefore, if we don't restrain ourselves, we behave in abominable ways, like that experiment that Serbian artist in New York did, where she presented herself to a room full of people and she was silent, and she left a note that whatever they want to do, she'll just be standing there, won't react, won't do anything. They have 3 or 4 or 5 hours or whatever it was, she'll just stand there. There was a table on which there are all kinds of articles. And some people started putting flowers in her hair and adjusting her hair, maybe adjusting her clothes, and some people started touching her, they started removing clothes, and someone pinched her, and little by little they started to become more and more violent, to the point where they were cutting her, stripping her naked, pushing their hands in the cavities of her body. Crazy people. And these are not people from the street. In other words, that was a social experiment. It just goes to show what people can turn into if they're given a chance. And America loudly demonstrates what happens when you allow humanism. People become human. Conditioned souls who open up shopping malls, they build shopping malls. It's complete insanity. Indians think it's good. And that fellow also thinks it's good. It's utterly, it's degenerating person consciously. But that's the disease of modern times, lower modes of the material nature, and then in due course of time, Indians will become like Americans, every third medicated or in need of medication for, mental and emotional instability, because they don't live right. Humanism. First thing to understand is that, I'm not a human, I'm a spirit soul. And I need some principles by which I can live so I don't degrade. And you lift those principles and people turn into animals. Free the nipples movement, you know that? American women wanting to go around with bare-chested. It's my sexuality, it's body, I want to show it to the world, but they don't think in terms of edification and the opposite of edification. They become vulgar, because that's consciousness. That's the nature of consciousness. You see, the problem is that we perceive the world through our consciousness. So when our consciousness becomes conditioned in a specific way, we actually perceive world like that. Like these women who want to walk around naked without being ticketed or brought to jail. They truly believe in that because their consciousness tells them so. They perceive world like that. So similarly, in the land or in the domain of religion, you have the same thing going on. People are a certain consciousness, and majority of people are dominating majority. Well, dominating majority means dominating. Dominating number of people of lower consciousness. That's just a fact. He's being a little bored. Just a couple of more minutes and we're done. And so that's why in every tradition we find most of people to be karmis. And what's interesting, how strongly that element can be found even in Krishna consciousness, a tradition that for its object, for its ziel, that's in Croatian, means goal. Sorry. I was just in Croatian. Contaminated, I'm lingually contaminated right now. We find that element of materialism, the karmic element, in the tradition of Krishna consciousness that for its goal has bhakti, devotion, love of God, strongly present. Because majority of people that's their consciousness. And you speak to them anything beyond that and they just fall asleep. They can't even hear you can't get to them. That's why there's prasadam, I guess. Very merciful prasadam. But that's one of the reasons, yeah. Because this world is a place where such souls exist, they come to. This is a playground for conditioned souls. Is that okay? But that's good, you notice that. You see, many people wouldn't recognize that. They would even think that's good. Humanism is good. But they don't realize that what that person is pointing out is that stuff that he's saying that religious people are doing is done by religious people who are like him. It's same people, just in the religious domain. They're religious in the sense that they have come to God, but they're not really religious, First, when I encountered religion as a teenage boy, I thought it was a seriously stupid thing. Because I went to my local priest and asked questions. And I didn't go to challenge, but I naturally had questions. And the answers they gave me were just really not intelligent. And I thought, if that's religion, for God's sake, I don't want to have to do much with it, or if anything. But later on, as I matured, I realized that in every tradition you have pop religion and then you have real stuff. Sometimes people ask, is Islam bad? I mean, what are you talking about? Those people who blow themselves up? Or are you talking about, fine Muslims who have, good fine brain, and who know something about God? Same thing with Christians or with Hindus. That's why this presentation, Krishna's concept of religion, is much better. Yeah. It really gives you a clue as to what religion is. That was a good one. Thank you. Okay, any last thing? Yes, Prabhuji.
Typically in the science of self-realization course, we talk about these four elements that you mentioned, karma, jnana, yoga, and then finally bhakti. And we say bhakti is the elevated path, and it's faster, you don't need to go through the step by step. But it almost appears that we have to go step by step because all this contamination people bring from outside into religion is what's trustworthy.
When it says that when we say we don't have to go step by step, that doesn't mean that we can immediately jump to the level of bhakti. You'll be surprised how few people in Krishna consciousness are actually bhaktas, in a true sense. But for example, Srila Prabhupada said that all of his disciples, followers, are pure devotees. So we could be pure devotees literally, or we could be pure devotees by our intention. See, we can come to want to be a pure devotee, and that's what makes someone on the path of pure devotion. So that's what we recommend to people. We don't tell them become a karmi or become a jnani or yogi, but bhakti does contain elements of jnana and even karma, etc. But for Krishna's pleasure, that's why we don't call it to be jnana, karma or yoga, we just call it bhakti. Because when bhakti becomes covered over by jnana, karma, yoga or whatnot, then it's called jnanam avritam or yoga avritam. Anya bilashita shunyam jnana karma adi anavritam. So pure bhakti is bhakti which is not covered. Sometimes we say bhakti which is devoid of karma, but not. It's Krishna consciousness is not devoid of jnana. Right now we're having this is an intellectual discourse, communication. We're thinking of stuff and we're communicating stuff. It's an intellectual activity. But we don't call it intellectual activity. We call it bhakti because it's done, hopefully. For the goal of becoming devotees, for the pleasure of God, of Krishna. So in that sense, we don't tell people become a jnani and then you'll become a bhakta, but we just tell them immediately try to be a bhakta. But then within that bhakti, the person will study Bhagavad Gita, will meditate, chant Hare Krishna, which will make him a yogi, etc. What is it? Yogi Bhav Arjuna. Therefore be a yogi, Arjuna. How does that go? To conclusion. Doesn't matter. In one point in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, therefore be a yogi. Doesn't mean that he should now. That's exactly what Krishna told him not to be, because he wanted to be a yogi in the sense of running off and having nothing to do with everything anymore. Is that okay? Thank you. Okay, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. So if the world does not explode and if it's still going to be around on Monday, there'll be Monday evening lecture also. At what time? 7:30, okay. Hare Krishna.
Have a seat. Sit down. I was going to give in a Telugu class, but I'll probably sing now. Sometimes we have these Telugu speaking people coming here, so I will give a class like that. Yeah.
Fortunate to come.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,